Thank you. Thank you. We got some more room posse here. Well, it's a little too late in the afternoon for you guys. Come on. I came here to see what a MAGA insurgency looks like. You all have worse press than I do. And that's just the local paper. Look, I came here for one reason. This is raw political power, right? You took it back from the establishment, right? You took it right back from the establishment. Let's go back to those dark days of 2021. Remember that? President Trump had just won his second term, but was he in Washington, D.C.? Trump won, right? Yeah, right. You did. They stole it, right? Stole it right in front of us. Stole it with cooperation of the Republican establishment, did they not? Because Trump, not in the room, not in the deal, and President Trump not only put you in the room, he put you at the head of the table, correct? Is that what's going to save this country? It has to. How did we get in this shape? How did we get here? Well, Joe Biden's part of it. He's part of it. A big part of it. No, the corrupt, Democratic, neo-Marxist party is what they are. Backed by the lords of easy money, the sociopathic overlords on Wall Street, the global corporatists, the apartheid state oligarchs in Silicon Valley, which the progressive movement and progressive Democrats created. We didn't create it. Trump didn't create them. Hell, Trump's got Zuckerberg on trial that started in Washington, D.C. this very day. Remember all the talk about Trump? Trump said, oh, they're all there at the inauguration, and Trump's going to kowtow to him, going to give him everything. And Zuckerberg came, and he was a supplicant, had his money, and gave it over and over again, right? He started trial today to break up Facebook. Trump brought that in his first term. And Zuckerberg begged him, please, whatever you do, I can't go to trial because he's got to testify. He's got to testify in front of the American people of what he did to shut down the conservative movement and silence people so they could steal an election. And we haven't even got to his criminal activity, the $450 million he gave to steal the 2020. The sociopathic lords of easy money on Wall Street, the global corporatists domiciled in this country that you protect, right, with your laws, your law enforcement, and your military. The apartheid state oligarchs in Silicon Valley that don't want any American citizens working for them because they have to pay a decent wage, and they'd rather import the foreigners who have no earthly idea where they're getting into. They're coming over here as indentured servants. Is that appropriate for America in the 21st century to bring indentured servants here to this country that work for 50% less and live in horrible conditions in Silicon Valley so that Zuckerberg and this crowd can make more money and become bigger billionaires? And they were created by the Democratic Party. In the 2008 financial collapse, Obama, the most progressive president in history, turned to the guys on Wall Street for the bailouts. Any of you guys get bailouts? Hell no, you didn't get a bailout. They all got bailed out. The biggest financial collapse in the country's history, bigger than the Great Depression. Not one executive in Wall Street went to jail. No corporate entities, no insurance companies, private equity, nobody went to jail, bailed out with trillions of dollars. The greatest concentration of wealth the nation has ever seen was in the 8 years of Obama's presidency. And what's Obama doing? He's the most progressive. Those are just shiny toys they're throwing down in front while they concentrate money and power. At the same time, they made a deal with the oligarchs, 5 or 6 guys in Silicon Valley. We will have no antitrust. We will let you become absolute supreme in your areas. You will not be touched. But since we're a hegemon, all you have to do is promise that you're going to be and commit to give the commanding heights of social media, in things like artificial intelligence. And what do we know in the last couple of months? In social media like TikTok, they're far behind. And in artificial intelligence, if DeepSeek, even if it's not a Chinese psyop, what do we know? We know that we're probably years behind, and every piece of energy capacity we're adding is just to do their artificial intelligence model. So here's their solution. You know what they want? They want a bailout. These are the richest people in the world, and they come to President Trump for a bailout. They want a Mercury project or a Marshall Plan. They want $500 billion to $1 trillion to bail them out, to get them to compete against the Chinese Communist Party. Plus, they want to take control of all the nation's weapons labs. Do you feel comfortable turning the nation's weapons labs over to guys like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg? These people are freaks. You can tell that by looking at them. We're not going to do that. This is why what you are doing is so important, and is, quite frankly, along with President Trump, the salvation of this country. This coming Saturday is the 250th anniversary of the shot heard around the world, Lexington and Concord. That's what you are. We start this week with a shot heard around the world. There's no more powerful political convention going on in this year than right here. Why? Why? You are ordinary Americans with no money, and you grabbed power from the establishment and said, go screw yourself. We're going to run this country like it should be run. Look at the media reports. You guys seized power, MAGA insurgency, radical MAGA. What's so radical about what you're asking for? That working class and middle class people use your agency. That's what they hate most about what you're doing. They want you sitting on the sofa. They want you watching Netflix and just sitting there, not doing what the patriots in Lexington and Concord did, which is get up and fight to take your country back. There's an unbroken chain from Lexington and Concord right here to this convention hall. Every one of you are exactly like those patriots. You're fearless. You don't care what they're going to do to you. You don't care what they're going to say about you. You know why? You're tough as boot leather, right? And you have found a leader in Donald John Trump for the first time in this country's history, at least since the founding of the nation, that is as tough as boot leather too. You're here to pick your delegates and your leaders, and they're going to go to Columbia for the state convention, right? My Lord. Oh, man. Are those folks ready for that? Those are Republican rhinos. This is the same thing. I just got back to two shining examples in this nation right now. There's a couple others that are coming on. But the two shining examples in this nation of how you can sort this nation out are in Tarrant County, Texas, and right here in Greenville. Look at this. Look at this. This is not an election year. This is called, you've got to pour yourself and use your human agency. That's what they fear. They fear a free people coming together. And you have disagreements, you have fights. Hell, if I read the media, you're having fights every time you meet. But that's what it's supposed to be. You think the Patriots had a group hug every time they met? Hell no. They knew what they had to do. And it came down here eventually to South Carolina to end this thing, right? And it ended in my state, the Commonwealth of Virginia, but they were pretty beat up by the time they got there. They were ready to surrender. It's amazing. And what's most amazing is the individual we have as our leader that's inspired so many of you, President Trump, right? A man like that. And Bill Maher, I did Bill Maher on Friday in L.A., in Beverly Hills. And, he had just gone to the White House. I don't know if you guys got to see it. I don't sense there's a lot of Bill Maher fans in the audience, so I will summarize. I think it was Kid Rock had Bill Maher go to the White House and have a dinner with the president. And Bill Maher had a list. He starts off, he's got a list of 10 pages long. And it's everything that President Trump has called Bill Maher over the last 10 years. It may be 20 pages long. Caitlin Collins is the new stand-in for Bill Maher, okay? So, and it's Trump. It's some rough stuff. And President Trump takes his pen out, reads it, and signs it and autographs it. Bill Maher said, and he's met just about every politician in this country, he said, this was an individual look you in the eye, let you speak your piece, didn't want to argue with you, heard it, had some comments. And I said, you just saw President Trump that people around him see all the time, right? Not has a great sense of humor, but he's a listener. As a chairman CEO, having been at Goldman Sachs and other places where your job is to brief those people and to give them the alternatives so they can make decisions, President Trump is a listener. President Trump does not come in and dominate the room. He wants to hear what you have to say. And Bill Maher was shocked about that. He said, hey, everything in the public persona of the guy is not like the private persona. And I said, well, look, he has a role to fill, right, as Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States. And what you saw is the real man, but that is the man behind these policies. And this is why people love him. He connects to people. Now think about it for a second. And I was there for 16, play-by-play. And I can tell you, it was divine providence. Divine providence had its hand in that victory. Because there we had a man, we had a plane, we had a message, we didn't have a lot of money, and we had virtually no organization. It was self-organized. At the state level, you all remember that. It was self-organized. The state groups did a great job, but they didn't have much cash either. And we won in a great comeback. I mean, when I took over in mid-August, I don't know, he was 10, 12 points down. We closed that gap, and he was leading, and then we had Billy Bush weekend, of which they thought, remember, they held that on purpose. They had that tape for years. They waited until before the last debate, or before that debate, the one in the round, thinking they would trap him. They didn't trap him, right? He pushed through it. The reason was, as I told him at the time, people know that they're losing their country. The most critical issues this nation's ever faced are before us today. That's what they worry about, and they know that you're not a politician. And look, he delivered a come-from-behind victory, probably the greatest at the time it ever happened. And then in those 4 years, you saw the deep state, the administrative state. You also saw the true colors, the unmasking of the rhinos, right? The globalist rhinos. They didn't have his back. He's fighting them as much as he's fighting everybody else. Mitch McConnell in this crowd, Paul Ryan. And Paul Ryan didn't quit but not leave Speaker of the House in 18, so they get almost through the House so President Trump could get impeached. And just that entire fight. Then to run 2020 against all odds and actually, I believe, have an outstanding victory, right? And nobody supported him, only you, the people that voted for him. The people that voted for him. And then he goes back to Mar-a-Lago, and that's about the same time that, we start making a big deal about the precinct strategy. The reason is we understand there's nobody coming to save us. If you don't do it, it's not going to be done. That's why you're exactly like the folks at Lexington and Concord. If it wasn't for them, it wouldn't get done. That's taking action. That's your lineage. Past every patriot's grave back to the beginning of the nation to here. You think they like what's going on here? They fear this. You know why they fear it? They think you could inspire a nation just like at Lexington and Concord. That you could say, I got off the sofa, I put down the channel changer, I went to the precinct meetings, and they weren't all great. And people didn't sit there and embrace you and say, isn't it great? You're coming here to empower the Republican Party. I don't think that happened, did it? That's when they call you a MAGA insurgency. You went in and said, okay, I hear you. We are going to take power. And you took it. So what happened? Trump goes to Mar-a-Lago, and all of a sudden, people around the country like yourself go, it's the rally point. We have to get engaged. The Republican Party's not going to save us. Fox News, the Murdochs aren't going to save us. We have to save ourselves. That is one of the most important moments in American history, the darkest days. Go back to 2021. How crushed you were, how much you said, like, oh my God, this is over. And look at that neo-Marxist regime that took over, and look what they tried to do. The billboards, if you saw anything, say something, it was like the Stasi in East Germany. Hell, we got people watching that German movie, The Lives of Others, and they're sitting there going, oh my God, this is just like East Germany was. It's happened in the United States, and it did happen in the United States. And what did President Trump do? Think about this for a second. He's down in Mar-a-Lago. He could have played the game. He could have taken a big book deal. He could have gone and bought more golf courses. He could have gotten to the open rota back in Europe. He could have gotten into the PGA, got Bedminster in the PGA. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got great grandkids. If you've ever been in Mar-a-Lago, it's like Xanadu, okay? It's a nice life. It can be an easy life. And he didn't choose that path. Think about that for a second. He made a conscious decision with intention, understanding that in January and February and March of 2021, and seeing with clarity ahead that they were going to try to put him in prison. They were going to try to assassinate him. They were going to try to bankrupt him and smear his family, bring up all these people, say horrible things about him. And he made a conscious decision that said, I'm going to come back because this election was stolen, and we can't allow that to exist in a republic. You can read Jack Kennedy's profiles in courage, read them all. You add them up and triple them, and they not even a tenth of the moral courage that Donald John Trump showed by saying, I'm coming back for the good of this republic. If we allow this thing to be stolen and we roll over, if we take the easy path, the path that the Republican Party has taken for decade after decade after decade, we're going to lose this republic. And who had his back? Did the big shots on Wall Street, did all the big pundits in the Republican Party, everybody's made millions of dollars off Trump, did they have his back? No. You had his back. That's why he did it. He knew the MAGA movement was going to have his back. Because you're a honey badger also. You don't care what they're going to do to you. Bankrupt you, put you in prison. Try to kill us all. Hey, I dare them, right? We dare you. This movement's ascended. President Trump came back in 4 years. Remember, they're all talking, it's got to be DeSantis and Nikki Haley. It's going to be this, that. They're never going to be president of the United States. Donald Trump was going to win that from the beginning with your back. And they hate, man, you think of they hating on Trump, and they hate when I start saying he had moral clarity. You know, he's not perfect, right? Not perfect. We've had one perfect individual in mankind's history, right? President Trump's not, and they nailed him to a cross, did they not? State authorities. This week also. Trump, it's his imperfections that make him more powerful. It's his imperfections. He's overcome his imperfections to come back and be this leader. Only Washington, Lincoln, and now Trump. General Washington at the beginning of the nation, the birth of the nation, Abraham Lincoln at the rebirth, and Donald Trump at the rejuvenation and to return America to her former greatness. That's why they hate him. And this is why it's so important for folks to come and not to speak to you, but to listen to you. This is the key to saving this nation. Everyone, every person out there, if they learn it's about your own age, think about your own journeys, right? This been easy. There's a whole lot of other stuff you could have been doing, right? And there were tough nights and tough fights and pettiness, constant pettiness, right? I hear some laughing over a little bit of pettiness. Of course it is. It's politics. This is the grimy part of politics. You're fighting for control of the greatest and most powerful nation in the history of the earth, right? Think about it. I know many of you love history here. You study, you read the Roman Empire, the British Empire, all of it. The United States of America is so much more powerful, has done so much more in the world than any of the great empires of ancient times. And you are one of the key players, and I would argue the key player in its survival and its future. Now, this is why the sociopathic overlords on Wall Street, the global corporatists, and the apartheid state oligarchs in Silicon Valley are not going to come on this stage and walk in the audience and give you a group hug, right? Because they understand you represent a lineage of the American people saying, no, not on our watch. We've lost this country. We had lost it, not about to lose it. When they stole the election, we had lost the country. And we would not have gotten the country back if it was not for you having Donald Trump's back. His moral clarity say, I'm going to do it, but he needed troops in back of him that were unflinching, unrelenting, and say, we are not going to quit, because the one lesson history teaches us about our movement, if we don't quit, we will ultimately be victorious. How did you feel on the evening of 5 November, about 10 or 11 o'clock, right? When all the pundits, they're sitting there all day. Look, the urban areas are turning out and the universities are turning out. And you just see their long faces all night. It was a bigger shock to them than 2016. 2016, they didn't see us coming. You could actually argue Hillary Clinton lost it more than we won it, right? Her arrogance, her incompetence, her just demonic nature. Gotta miss her. They saw Trump coming for 4 years. Hell, he had indictments for 372 years in prison. And believe you me, they wanted him in federal prison, did they not? They want him to die in federal prison. Not simply that Trump dies, but the Trump movement in MAGA dies with him, right? Not happening. Not happening on our watch, right? That was the greatest. They had 4 years. They laid every trap they could, including at the end trying to assassinate him. Yes, the deep state trying to assassinate him. And anybody who doesn't believe it woke up last night because they tried to take him out when all else failed, to assassinate him. And God in heaven protected him. That's why the big steal, God works in mysterious ways. The big steal was providential. Think of what the second term would have been like, and they're all ganged up around him, right? And the rhinos all turned on him. He got the Russiagate, all that nonsense. That's all ridiculous. Think of what the second term, and think of the marvelous, magnificent nature of this second term, because he had 4 years of having the precinct strategy and people like yourselves having his back, and he sees his movements more than just these great rallies. The rallies are amazing, but this is the hard work. He saw it and could feel it. You could see it in the States. You could see it with the turnout. Hell, this is what Elon Musk, when he came in, he said, I fully support that. I see it's a grassroots, it's a MAGA plus strategy, because you don't have the money, the billions of dollars they have to go up on TV. You have to do it from the grassroots. And the smartest engineer in the world looked at it and goes, hey, I'm with them. And look at Trump. And look at Trump, and look at all the public intellectuals. Russ Vought at Center for Renewing America. The Brooks over at America First, Brooks Rollins, America First Policy Institute. Stephen Miller at America First Law Institute, Meadows and Senator DeMint at CPI, Conservative Policy Institute, and wait for it, Project 2025, right? You're damn right. You're damn right. Bringing it together, thinking of every vertical, every policy of national security, America First economic policy, and my favorite, deconstructing the administrative state. 4 years. And look at the courage of those people. When they stepped out and stepped into this, their careers would have been over. They made a bet on Trump, but more importantly, they made a bet on Trumpism and MAGA. That this is what we have to do, and these are among the smartest people in the country. And the folks I just named are all in the second term, thank God in heaven, right? They stole it, and two things happened. Number one, all the cards got flipped over. These aren't your grandparents' Democrats. These are a bunch of radical, atheistic, neo-Marxists out to destroy this country. And President Trump had 4 years to prepare. So now I gave that interview years ago, and I said, hey, we're trying to flood the zone, do 2 or 3 things every night. Hell, he's doing a dozen every day. That's because of preparation, and they're sticking. You know, Bill Maher is sitting there, and he's trying. I mean, he met Trump, he's impressed, and his audience turned on him, not in the studio, but later online. Oh, my Lord. They turned to him for saying good things about Trump, but he's in there. He says, hey, I notice you're talking about Trump third term. I said, yeah, working on that with some folks. He says, well, I want to give you something. A Constitution of the United States. He says, you know, then he read on his show. He went and read the 22nd Amendment. He says, you see, it's right there. He gave it to him. I want you to hold it. What you know? I said, Bill, President Trump right now on exerting his Article 2 power, which is a long way before your amendment you're talking about, right? It's up in the body of the work. Doing his Article 2 power of Chief Executive Officer of the United States government, the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, and the Chief Magistrate and Chief Law Enforcement Officer of this government. Right now, there are 150 lawsuits, and every day they get 6 or 7 more. I said, I can tell you right now, it's black letter what his responsibilities are, but you guys are in it challenging it every day. And guess what? We ain't going to amend this, but I think we got a couple of 3 workarounds, so just stand by. Their heads blow up. It's very simple. Most nations are not fortunate to have a man like Trump show up. In our country, as great as some of our presidents and military leaders and others have been, we've had 2 before him that have stood out. So roughly every 100 or 150 years. You got to play this hand out. We got to play it all the way out. Because an individual like that does not come on the scene. And trust me, to turn this nation around is going to take more than 4 years. You think that? Hell, it's going to, with patriots here that won't give up, it's going to take us that long to take over the Republican Party in South Carolina. Starting on May 3rd. President Trump right now is, look at what he's doing. Just look at it for a second. These aren't small things. Remember Bill Clinton and the uniforms in schools and things like that? He is trying and accomplishing reorganizing the commercial relationships of the nations of the earth. Is that a small thing? No. He has every vested interest that has made so much money as they bled America dry, right? And here's the thing that's the hardest to take. It makes the working class and the middle class citizens who were the best, who husband their resources, who are the householders that every democracy and republic depends upon. Edmund Burke told us that this was the little platoons, right, that were so essential to make a country work. They took your tax money and they took the little bit you have set aside in 401ks or in these, Oregon teachers or, the Alabama pension fund, all the pension funds, the equity that you've saved up for your retirement and your tax money was what was used to ship all the high value added manufacturing jobs overseas to make money for the elites in this country. No country on earth has ever been betrayed by the elites of their nation like the United States of America in the 21st century, right? And here's what they did it for. Not for ideology, not for any noble purpose. They did it for money. And money they turned into power. And the only thing that stands in the way of their complete takeover is a guy named Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, right? Think about it. Think about that. President Trump, he's reordering the world economic system, and it's not easy. What he's trying to do is quite simple, to bring high value added manufacturing jobs back to the United States of America. No great power can exist without being a manufacturing superpower. And yet all day long on TV, I get all the service industry, they put up consultants and McKinsey and Booz Allen and Goldman Sachs. Hell, that's all the service business. And that can come and go with a whim. There's no sustainable competitive advantage. There's sustainable competitive advantage in what you make, in the intellectual property you make it off of. And that's what makes economies grow, and this is what makes communities thrive. Trump understands that. He's taking on the world. And every day you have other people coming, boom, boom, boom. He's driving towards that. At the same time, he's rethinking the geopolitical structure of the world since the Second World War. And he's saying, hey, I think the framers had a pretty good idea. It was called the Monroe Doctrine. We're going to revert back to a hemispheric defense. And that defense is going to go at least from the Panama Canal. That is ours, and we're taking back, right? Jimmy Carter and all you feckless Democrats going to give it to people who immediately transferred it to the Chinese Communist Party for money. All the way up to Greenland. Why Greenland? Because you block the Russian Navy coming out of Murmansk and Archangel. You block them. They can't be a threat to the United States. So we say to Europe, our great allies in NATO, who have never really paid for the defense at all, it's the United States or America that does it. If they sit there and go, Ben, it's so harsh. We got 2 carrier battle groups as we sit here today in the Red Sea, 2, with 24,000 young sailors, right? Keeping the Red Sea open for the Suez Canal so that oil from the Gulf and goods from China can go the Suez Canal to Europe. And what are the Europeans doing? You got 1 British frigate, you got 1 Italian corvette, you got 1 French destroyer. That's all they're putting up. Because the elites in this country are in business with them. They sold out this country to them, so certainly they're going to protect them. And that's what President Trump's saying. No, the elites in Europe are as wealthy as elites in America, and it's time they start paying up. The working people in Europe have retired 50 or 55 on a full pension. You got full health care. You got free college. You take, 6 or 8 weeks off in the summer. You go to the summer in Europe, nobody's there. Do you have that? No, you don't have that. And the reason is the good jobs have been shipped away. But more importantly, you're spending $1 trillion on defense right now to protect these folks. And more importantly, the greatest asset you have, your sons and daughters are the ones on the carrier battle groups. They're the ones walking patrol in the Hindu Kush. That's the 101st Airborne Brigade that's in Romania. That's what's in the South China Sea. The very people that are the backbone of the nation that have sacrificed everything, it's their children that have volunteered, not the elites' kids, right? How many progressive Democrats you got over there? Yeah, you have some Navy SEALs because that's gone a little woke, right? But Pete Higgs is going to take care of that. America first national security policy. Sit down with the Russians. Let's talk about a rapprochement. Let's stop this killing field in Ukraine. Folks, when people say it's going to be Third World War is here. If you go back to September of 1939 in Poland and take it all the way to June of 1941 when the Wehrmacht attacked their allies, the Russians, you take that time and you take North Africa, the fall of France, the Blitz over Britain, the Battle of Britain. I'll throw in Finland. And some stuff and other stuff in North Africa, there's a couple 100,000 people. Terrible. but not huge casualties. Hell, we've lost 1.5 million in Ukraine, right? That people in this audience said, no way, we should not do that. It was the elites in this country that forced the Ukrainians to go fight that fight. Remember, Mersheimer said the elites in this nation are going to lead the Ukrainians down the primrose path to their destruction. And when it comes to burdensome, and what I mean by burdensome, when the frickin' European elites got to start paying for it, not the American taxpayer, all of a sudden, whoa, we need to bring it to a head. That's how heartless they are. Do you think they care about the Ukrainian people? Ukraine looks like Dresden in 1945, and they could care less. They move on with their lives in the south of France, or in Tuscany, in Italy, or in the West End of London, of which, by the way, is not owned by the British people anymore, but owned by Russian oligarchs. The Gulf Emirates and the Chinese Communist Party bought their own country, like they're trying to buy the country here. And who stands in the way of that? Trump. And who's got Trump's back? You. If you ever falter, it's over. And that gets to the third part of things. America First national security policy. Economic nationalism started with these trade and tariff deals, and it's more than trade and tariffs. It's taking on the Chinese Communist Party and forcing Wall Street, the corporatists in Silicon Valley to bring these jobs back. You're not going to get underwritten. Then you've got the last part. Deconstruct the administrative state and destroy the deep state. I don't call it a deep state because it ain't deep. It's up in your grill. President Trump's like like a leader in Saigon in 1967. 9/10 of that government are not just anti-MAGA, they're anti-American. They're globalists. They do not believe in the nation state. They do not believe in the Treaty of Westphalia. They do not believe in this republic as a constitutional republic. And I will tell you, the first opportunity they got to take Trump out, they will take Trump out. You cannot trust any of them. People say, well, I said, he's doing so much. The one thing I would recommend we do a little quicker, with a little more urgency. We take a trenching tool out and we start digging them out of the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CIA. Is it right? Look at this. Your American patriots have fought in every modern war. Your sons and daughters have fought. You're the patriot, the backbone of the nation. And you're cheering, taking down the FBI, taking down the CIA. Things would be unheard of 40 or 50 years ago. Why? You've had a great awakening. You understand what's gone on. You've seen a man like Trump come along with a revolution of common sense. And what did they do to him? They tried to destroy him. What was it about Trump? What did Trump say? What did Trump do? What was so awful that he had to be destroyed? He had to be put in prison till he died, or he had to be assassinated. What was it about Trump? Is that he stood up for the American working man and woman, you. And remember, the one thing they hate above all else is your empowerment. Because they understand once you're empowered, you're not going to give it back, right? You understand how you turn your country around. You're seeing it on a microcosm of how you took over the Republican Party there, right? There was no garden party, correct? Right? It wasn't. It had to be done. Otherwise, you just controlled opposition. How did the country get like this? You said Biden or Obama or Hillary Clinton or all the neo-cons, but it was a Republican Party that had just controlled opposition, just kind of went along. This, like your beloved senator from South Carolina. I think there might be a primary challenge now that I hear this. That's a symptom of the problem, is it not? It's that go along with what the radical Democrats want to do, right? It's want to spread America all over hell's half acre. It's not that we don't have strategic interests. This is not America alone. We're not isolationists. Hell, virtually every person or family here either had somebody in the service, knows overseas. You are the backbone of what's kept us free. We're not isolationists. We're not saying come home. We're not saying America alone. But it's no longer we're going to be the policeman, the cop for globalists, for their interest, not the interest of the nation. They hate Trump because his first slogan, America First. Remember that? Oh, my God, they're fascist. They're fascist because he wanted to put America first and, wait for it, American citizens first. Right? Right. Right. What is Trump fighting on the tariffs and the trade and all this, on the tax bill he's doing? The additional tax cut, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, right? He understands the American people, that the shoulders of the whole world system rest on your shoulders. Think about that. It rests on your shoulders. You're the full faith and credit of the United States. The whole monetary system, everything is on your shoulders. The whole military is on your shoulders. And you've been screwed every day for the last 50 years since President Reagan left, right? Right? Until Trump came out. That's what they hate. They hate the fact that he came with a revolution that was a great awakening. Nobody in this room, if I told you years ago that one day, right before the 250th anniversary of one of the greatest moments in world history, not just American history, the shot heard around the world in Lexington and Concord, you would be in a convention hall, screaming like mad men and mad women, right? As one of the greatest examples in this country of taking the country back. You say, no, I'm not, it was on, think about it. Think about your life. Think of the arc of your life. Think of your journey. That is what is inspiring people throughout the country. Tarrant County, and here's the amazing thing. In South Carolina, which is so MAGA, with his population and his folks, in Texas, which is so MAGA, the establishment there are, how do I say this politely, not MAGA, right? Because the vested interest, South Carolina is a magnificent state. Do you honestly think they're just going to turn it over to you and say, okay, you guys run it? That's not the way it works. And you know that. And that's why you're such an amazing lesson to people, because you said, my agency, my own human agency. They may think I'm a nobody, but I'm not. And you've proved that. So the last thing is to leave you guys with is in inspiring other people. Think about it for a second. The first victory, and Trump even coming down and doing it, was inspired by divine providence, and the hand of God was in there. The hand of God was in the big steal, because God wanted us to understand the enemies of this nation and what they were prepared to do to this nation and prepared to do to the folks that were the backbone of the nation, right? That victory against all odds, the third victory, because they saw us coming, is the most powerful, because now we have people that you would think never hear the MAGA about MAGA. 39% of African-American men, Hispanics in majority. And I can tell you, having done a short trip to a federal prison, the young, I'm telling you right there, these people, these young African-American, Hispanic men hate the Democratic Party. They hate it. And they admire Trump. They don't understand all his policies, and they don't have to. They said, that guy's a leader. He's not a politician. I will follow that man. That's what Trump gives us. And what is for you tonight, after this, ask yourself one thing about taking it broader from here and even broader than Columbia. But taking your message throughout the country, to your countrymen, that so far some of them have just been too timid to do it. Ask yourself, the world's had, 10, 12, 14, 114 billion, I think, 114 billion people, right, since the beginning. Why did divine providence put you here in this time and place? What are you going to be judged for? What are you going to be held accountable for? Why are you here in America and you are every bit as patriotic and have a deep, abiding love for this country and prepared to sacrifice for this country as the men and women that were in Lexington Common and at Concord Bridge this Saturday 250 years ago? Everybody that reads this, if I was there, we are in the greatest danger, a far greater danger than the Patriots in 1775 and 76. Greater than even the Civil War. Greater than World War II and the lead up to it. This is the greatest peril this nation's ever had, because the forces aligned against us are not only international forces, but the traitors on Wall Street and corporate America and in Silicon Valley. The enemy within is almost as powerful as the enemy without. And the only thing that stands between it is Trump and you. In closing, I can just leave you with one thing. You are amazing, tremendous. Now you have to inspire an entire nation and lead an entire nation. No, I'm just a crazy Mick that yells into a microphone. Seriously, you guys do the work. I just want to leave you with one thing. When you set out to take Vienna, take Vienna. Fight, fight, fight. Trump 2028. Trump, 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 Trump. On the afternoon of January 20th, 2029, I'll have Bill Maher at the inauguration read this out loud. How's that?
Icon that we got for Poland. Wow. This is Donald Trump's star on the
Hollywood Lock. Hold on, they take this star up.
looks like right here.
Did they take President Trump's star up? Did they take it up? Aren't they trying to? Are we going to let them do that?
Hell no.
Let me tell you something. There's no way that you can be defeated. If we don't quit, we're going to win. You know that, right?